What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the our Saber lineup builder show. We're doing a special edition. We're going to do this all NBA playoff long. I'm here with my two guys. We got Glock. We got Rubio. Glock, let's bring you in first this time. I mean, I'm squeezed right between you guys. You guys got these bucket hats on. I'm feeling it. I like it. I feel like we're bringing the mojo today. How is this Sunday treating you?
It's been pretty good. Just finished with MLB stuff and now ready to lock into this. Obviously, rocking the DK bucket hat. Shout out to DK. But yeah, I mean, this game too should be really fun to break down. I think game one was, returning like 50% back. And honestly, it's pretty simple. Like, I think I had my Haywood Highsmith exposure flip-flopped from Kevin Love and Cody Zeller. If I had 50% Haywood Highsmith instead of 40 to 50% Kevin Love and Cody Zeller, then I would have been looking pretty good. But, today's a new day, a new slate. And so looking forward to break things down, see how things went in game one for you guys, and then, take it to this game and, hopefully get an edge that way.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And we're going to briefly review game one. I'll pull up the Sims front that we did on game one. If you watch that show, you should be very familiar with it. I feel like we nailed the script. We got a few things. We were just off, and I'll show you how. But Rubio, let's bring you in, my man. How is Sunday treating you?
Sunday's great. The F1 race was a little bit tilting, as in the first lap, my one of my guys, who I think he was my highest exposed driver, actually ended up crashing. So other than that, I mean, my Red Bull team got a win, and I've already opened up a Red Bull earlier today to wake me up. Now I got a Coors Light that kind of bring me down. And, before I really sweat this slate, like Block said, I saw him with the bucket hat. I decided I had to go copycat mode because how do you not get winners if you're wearing bucket hats? I mean, that's an automatic dub. I know Big T and JSU clowned the bucket hats, but to be honest, last time I went out golfing, wore a bucket hat. Maybe I played like shit, but hey, that doesn't stop me on the DFS.
Oh, you wore one out on the course? Oh man, I would have been making fun of you too, Rubio.
Hey, it was Joel Dahman, except without all the talent and good shots.
Rubio Dahman.
Great. But yeah, I mean, WNBA is let you guys do the MLB. I got the WNBA streets right now, so it's fun watching the first hour of that game. But I'm very happy to be on this show instead of watching that.
I mean, you had to be lying there. First half of that game, were you actually watching? I mean, that's dedication right there, Rubio. Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah, I was.
That's impressive. All right, so if you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps us out a ton here at Run Pure Sports. I want to try something too. I want game predictions. Your game two predictions. We need the score. Put them in the comment section. Whoever is closest or whoever nails it, we're going to shout you out for game three, and we're going to send you an RPS swag package. So again, I'm going to say this a couple times throughout the show. The game score, the final score of game two, put it in the comment section. Whoever's closest, we'll go back and look, gets a shout out and a swag package from RPS. So make sure you do that. I'll mention this a few other times throughout the show. Let's go back and review. So one thing I really like about Saber is, and I don't know if you can actually see it, but you can change the dates. You can go back to previous slates. So what I have right here up is the builds that I actually ran, and I played 40 lineups. I ended up just locking Jokic. I thought the script was pretty good for a Jokic captain build, but right out of the gate, we didn't get that aggressive Jokic, and which kind of made sense. I still had a really good ROI night. I think I made $400 or something. I just MME'd the 25. So I'll take it. One of the reasons why I had that successful night is I did have more Highsmith than Kevin Love, but Glock, I'm with you. I still had the Kevin Love in there too, which was obviously really, really painful. And then for me, what was really painful is if I would have gone back. So this was the builds that we had pulled up on the show that we did. And now again, I tweaked it to where I pulled up the Highsmith captain builds. Now, if you remember in the 150 that we ran, we only had one Highsmith captain build that landed on there. And I didn't run 150, I only ran 40. If I would have gone a little bit further, and if I would have bumped up Highsmith just a little bit, we would have gotten the old optimal there. So this build right here ranked 158 in my pool. That was what chopped like I think 80K. It was the Highsmith captain. You had Big Yoke in there, Murray, MPJ, Bam, and Gabe. So very hurtful as Glock, as we talk about. When you go back and you review your stuff, sometimes it's hurtful, but you got to go back and review. You got to go and look. When you do that, I really think it can help out your process. Ruby, I'm going to start with you. What were your takeaways from game one?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear that Denver was on the cusp of blowing them out. Now, the whole time, even when the third quarter ended, I'm sitting there, I was breaking even on the entire slate. I was rubbing my hands together. I'm like, Duncan Robinson time, baby. To start out on a 7-0 run, Denver, that's all I needed. And all of a sudden, it was the other way around. Game got a little bit close. And Haywood Highsmith was probably the biggest piece that, we saw. Obviously, it was optimal in the captain, but kind of hit a few threes, and it seemed like after the game, he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be used to guard Jamal Murray a little bit too. So it seems like his minutes are going to be safe, and he'll be a factor, especially not only in this entire series, but also in game two. So that was no surprise. I mean, you were on it, AP. He was in your core. And it was one of those things where we had Love, we had Zeller. Zeller ended up not playing great, but you also had Love, who now might be in the conversation of, does he start tonight? Do they move Strus to the bench? How does Hero come back to this rotation? How does that work? Because Hero right now, he's listed as out. There's a chance that he gets upgraded before game time, but really game one kind of played out how we thought it would. It just sucks to be on the wrong end of an MME type of build. I'm glad that you profited, AP, due to your Highsmith exposure, but me with Kevin Love and Cody Zeller kind of heavy there. Yeah, it was one of those things where, I'm glad that the pricing tweaks today kind of make it a little bit more difficult to kind of wade the waters, especially on FanDuel. FanDuel did a really good job pricing the slate, I think. I think that you can make the case for Jimmy, Bam, Jamal, all three of those guys in the star spot. And then you can kind of fiddle your way down in the 8K, 8.5K range. So really happy with the way they priced the slate over there. Then on DK, there's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, game one kind of gave us a little bit of hints. Like MPJ, talk about a guy who shot poorly, a guy who has been an absolute sharpshooter all season. He shot 5 for 16, 2 for 11 from downtown. Then you had the Heat shooters too. It felt like a game that no one could make a three ball. And I think that changes tonight a little bit. I really think Caleb Martin's status, he ended up practicing toward the end of I think last night he was in the gym. I think he was kind of alone.
Oh, he's playing
meters or whatever, and I think he plays. But that'll be some interesting status. I think if he's out, this slate it really changes, really gets interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be some tweaks in the rotation for the Heat. I think Zeller played Jokic kind of not great. That one driver, Jokic kind of went in the lane, and you just see Zeller fall down. Zeller then got a rebound, got a stolen from Jokic. Those minutes were poor, and I think he could lose out. But, yeah, I mean, game two is going to be fun, though.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you brought up the pricing adjustments, too. That's going to be something that we hit on just going from game one to game two. There were some very noticeable pricing adjustments that we had, mainly on the Heat side, and then some increases on the Nuggets side, too, that we'll review. But before I kick it over to Glock, we are running a really nice promo right now. Summer 33, it's going to get you 33% off your first payment, any package, SaberSim included. So if you like what you're seeing in this show, go over to Rompier Sports, sign up for weekly, monthly, include SaberSim in there, 33% off. That gets you a really nice low first price tag there using that code SUMMER33. Glock, what were your takeaways from game one?
Yeah, so like Rubio mentioned, man, it's just like when you script something out. I think on the show we were clamoring for that blowout, right? And the game, quarters 1 through 3, it was teetering between blowout for sure. And Denver wasn't even playing good, like Rubio mentioned. If we just look at the stats, Miami shot better from the 3-point line. I doubt that happens again today. But yeah, we were definitely on the blowout script, and like I said, it was teetering from blowout quarters 1 through 3. Fourth quarter, Big T even tweeted it, keep Jokic in, let's extend the lead and then take him out early. And then what do you know? The starter stayed in, Jokic stayed in. And unluckily, I think Miami came out and shot, made 3 straight threes to start the fourth and then kind of made it a close game. And then Denver couldn't pull away from there. So that was super painful just watching it because, when you're sweating your DFS lineups, you're rooting for a script to go a certain way. And, if those scrubbies came in and Duncan Robinson played that entire fourth, it would have been an absolute printer. Maybe not the optimal because I didn't have enough Highsmith, but it would have been a profitable day for sure, even if the script went right. So, yeah, I mean, other game one takeaways, I think like obviously the guy game one that's going to stand out the most, Haywood Highsmith. You'd have to think that he gets more minutes here or plays the same amount, because in his minutes, he was extremely vital to Miami's defensive and offensive process. Cause like he can guard Murray full court. He can pick him up, and he can kind of be that switch man when they run the 2-man pick and roll with Murray and Jokic, to kind of be that bigger, lengthier body on Jokic. Like he had some success. I'm not saying like, he shut down Jokic or anything. He's not that Rui Hachimura guy that everyone was saying from the Lakers, but like, I think we'll see more Highsmith here, and we could possibly see less Cody Zeller. I was kind of shocked. Like I said, we were pretty high on Kevin Love, and we're clamoring for him to get in the game. And when I saw Gabe Vincent at the beginning of the game, like just getting straight abused by Aaron Gordon, like he was just getting posted up, looking like Shaq, and just got any bucket that he wanted against Gabe Vincent. I was like, okay, this script is going good. Like maybe Spo thinks they need to get some size in there, like a big four, a power forward, maybe to guard Aaron Gordon, and his name would be Kevin Love. But honestly, he never checked in, which sucked. But I think we could see some Kevin Love here. I'm just going to go right back to the well. I think, just from a game two.
Glock, I'm glad you're, again, I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to ask too. Like, I thought Kevin Love would see, like, you have the Kevin Love, a veteran, and your team is struggling from the 3-point range. Like, why didn't we see Kevin Love? And then what's your argument? Like, if he doesn't start tonight, are you still playing him? Or what's kind of your thought process there, and what Spo might be doing from an adjustment standpoint?
Yeah, like I said, I think Rubio touched on it as well. Like, there could be a possible lineup change. I don't think you can go back to the same lineup and see Gabe Vincent get abused again in the post. Like, they just can't get to that bad of a start. So there definitely could be a lineup change here. And yeah, even if Kevin Love doesn't or does not start, I'm going to take my stabs. 2K.
I love
Kevin
the chat.
Yeah.
I'm not interrupting you, but that's exactly what I did.
No,
that's what I did.
Yeah, 2K Kevin Love, like that's too cheap. I'm just going to take a shot on him again and hope that he does play, because when he's in there, he's historically, high fantasy point minute producer. So I'm going to take my shots for sure at Kevin Love. And yeah, even if he doesn't start, I plan on getting my exposure to him just like last game. So yeah, that's kind of my plan.
Yeah. So in the fourth quarter, they did close with, it was Bam, Jimmy, Gabe, Haywood, and Lowry. So that was their more effective lineup out there. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the starting lineup looks like. I have no idea what I'm going to do with Kevin Love. I know we were not high on him, but we had him in our player pool from game one. And anytime, like, yeah, there is a risk that he'll be a DNP again. But what I've learned, if you're MMEing, have him in the pool if you had him last time, because if Kevin Love enters the rotation at all, he is a decent producer. If he's hitting shots from outside, he's obviously, it's not going to take a lot to get there, because he was 2.6K for game one. He's only 2K. So if you just think too, it gives him a little bit more size. And that's the thing. Like, the Nuggets are going to get whatever they want. I don't think, like, you're running Cody Zeller out there anyway, and he didn't look good. Like, I don't know. I mean, try Kevin Love. Gives you a little bit more size, gives you some range from outside, maybe a little bit more spacing too. Maybe that's what Jimmy Butler needs, because Jimmy Butler's, game is all about that mid-range and getting to the bucket. So it'll be interesting to see what Spo does. But let's
Rubio, one more thing we didn't touch on from game one. Bam Adebayo, like, it felt like Denver was completely comfortable just letting him get those little mid-range floaters, those pop shots. And, they were comfortably ahead. Like, even when Bam was looking like prime freaking Shaq, like he looked amazing. Like, he looked like the Bam Adebayo that I think everyone hopes that he can be, like, reaches his ceiling. So I think, like, you're going to see a lot of Bam Adebayo. We'll probably run it, but based on your projections, I know if I don't make any changes, and kind of base it off last game, I get a ton of Bam Adebayo, especially at captain spot, and in util. So if you think Denver maintains that same game plan where they kind of just let Bam eat, obviously Denver plays a lot of drop defense. So, when he's coming off that pick and roll, he's wide open in that mid-range doing his little pop shot thing. So if you think that shot falls again and Bam, Denver kind of gives that strategy of let Bam eat and not shut everyone else down, then, I think Bam is definitely the stronger Miami plays once again today.
Yeah, I agree. And this is where the pricing adjustments come to play. I mean, if you just go back to game one, and then if you look at the pricing today, Bam was 9.2 utility game one. He's 8.8K. And we've already learned what Denver's going to want to do. And it's not like they're going to go away from Bam. If anything, I thought a few things were really interesting. So the Nuggets ran a 6-man rotation, but their core 5 guys, so it was Jokic, Murray, and MPJ all played 40-plus minutes. Then KCP and AG, Aaron Gordon played 36-plus. And then you had, obviously, Bruce Brown kind of rotating in. And, it was a really tight rotation. And then Miami, Spo, one thing I guess I'll take away is Spo will be pretty quick to adjust. Max Strus was terrible. He was horrendous. Doesn't mean you fade him in game 2. If he comes out and hits his first threes or his first fours, Spo is going to let him cook. But he went through this. Martin was cold. Strus was cold. D-Rob was kind of struggling too. And so you see those guys get capped. But Gabe Vincent didn't. He played a ton of minutes. Obviously, Haywood came in and he played good minutes. Lowry, I think, maybe gets a little bit more run here. But then you got to play Jimmy and Bam all the minutes that they can handle, I think, as well. So my takeaway is, one, understand, the pricing adjustments that you're going to get, and then related to the rotation. So just going through it, Jimmy Butler, Rubio, you were talking about it before the show. He's 600 less than what he was in game 1. Still probably not enough, but it is a decent price adjustment. Bam was the most significant. His price went down 400. Gabe Vincent, I think, also really significant. He went down 400. Lowry's the only guy that stayed the same. And then Highsmith went up 1,800. So you get Highsmith there, who had the most significant price adjustment upwards while everyone else went downwards. And then on the Nuggets side, Jokic went up 800. Murray went up 400. And then MPJ only went up 200. And Rubio, going back to you as well, you mentioned MPJ kind of at the start of the show in your breakdown. Man, you got to love his role here. He's playing really nice. And I'm with Jokic. So at the end of that game, the interview, he looked up and he's like, I had no idea MPJ was, 2 for 11? I didn't either. I didn't think he played that bad. It was really surprising to see that he did play that bad. And if you're a Miami Heat backer, you're kind of in trouble right now because I don't think MPJ comes out and shoots 2 from 11 from 3-point range again, but we will see. So Rubio, let me kick it back over to you. Start talking about game 2, and I'm going to bring up this kind of first build using my projections. So again, I'm using my biased projections. We have SaberSim projections. We have our RPS projections. I've been loading what I call my biased projections, where I think the game script is going to pan out, and that's what we're going to use for the show today. But start talking to us about game 2 and how you see it playing out.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, Jimmy Butler came out and said, I got to be more aggressive, right? I take Jimmy Butler as a man of his word. I've taken him as a man of his word in the past, and it usually plays out. The problem is this matchup is absolutely disastrous. Aaron Gordon is very, very good defending. But here's also the thing, too. On FanDuel, when you take a look at Jimmy Butler at 15.5 compared to his tag on DK at 12.8, you're way more inclined to play him on FanDuel. And even when I got him projected at, over 50 for Jimmy, he's not hitting a ton of builds right now. And it's kind of a little bit concerning, because I don't like projecting Jimmy way above 50 because he's a grinder, right? These grinders don't really have a huge ceiling, and I don't like it. He's proven me wrong in the past. I know that. But this Aaron Gordon matchup and the way that these guys play, he still said, I'm still going to pass it to Strus and Martin. Even if they're 0 for 11 and you're open on the 11th shot, you're still going to take that shot and stuff. But I just don't think that Jimmy has enough upside on DraftKings for me to play him. And I think even if he gets 55, 56, I don't think he's optimal. And I hope that this tag that Jokic has was just 14.8, almost 15K price tag. I hope people are afraid to play him in the captain because you look at down the line here. You saw Vincent played 38 minutes. Lowry played extremely good. They closed with him in that dual point guard lineup as well. You saw if Highsmith is a little bit too cheap. We have a potential of Kevin Love entering into the rotation. I think Jokic in the captain tonight is way better than in some previous games. People just saw a punt captain hit, right? And we always talk about recency bias in DFS. Recency bias is a huge thing. And I think people are going to gravitate to, even if it's not a cheap captain, but they're going to be like, oh man, Bam took 25 shots last game. Let me put him at the captain. And I think that we're finally going to see Jokic kind of come in a little bit underowned on the captain side. And it kind of makes me excited because you get the best player in basketball, a guy who was in second gear last game almost the entire time. I think this is where I'm kind of talking about game 2, kind of that game script that you talk about. Haywood Highsmith, maybe more minutes, maybe making life more difficult on Jamal Murray. We've seen Jamal Murray have bad games in these playoffs. Not to say he's been bad in the playoffs. He's been absolutely stellar. But if Murray only gets 35 or 40, that probably means 35, 40 fantasy points, not real points. That probably means Jokic absolutely goes nuclear. And so does MPJ. Like, they probably have good games and stuff. And Jokic is a guy who, we've seen it before. He can get 80, 90 DK in a game. And I just love the fact that I'm kind of looking at this slate. I'm kind of seeing maybe the fact that Jokic comes in under-owned. And I'm trying to pull up his captain ownership last game. So let's go here. I'm going to click the first lineup that we did. I think, what did we get him at? We had him at just 34% captain. Now imagine a huge price increase, a bunch of decreases across the board for the Heat, and then we just saw a punt captain hit. I think there's a chance we get him at 20% captain tonight. He's my favorite play by far on the captain side. And he's going to be someone that I'm absolutely thrilled to play. I think he absolutely goes nuclear. I think that Jamal Murray shot extremely well from the field. Outside, he didn't shoot really well from 3. But he played in a terrific game, and his price is almost $12K as well, right? Or I guess it's like 11.2. These prices are getting a little bit too high for Jimmy and for Jamal. And then the only obstacle I have on this slate is Bam Adebayo. He said he's going to remain aggressive. It's clear that the Nuggets want him to shoot the ball. They want him to be the focal point of the offense, but man, he's been an inconsistent player. I think there's a lot of negative regression maybe due for Bam in this game. He's going to be chalk. People love to react to one game. He's going to get a ton of ownership tonight. And I'm really kind of looking at this Jokic captain with a triple stud fade because I think it has a decent chance to hit tonight. And we've seen Bam completely underwhelm, where if Jokic has a great game and Bam kind of underwhelms, even if Jamal and Jimmy do good, like that Jokic captain bill can outperform, and you can leave salary and find a unique shipper. So that's one thing that I'm really looking at. Aaron Gordon is also a fade that I'm on. So Aaron Gordon at 6'4", that dude had a nuclear first quarter. You would have thought he was the optimal captain. Well, guess what? He wasn't even the optimal lineup. This dude looked like Locke said, he looked like Shaq in the first quarter, and then also comes in and doesn't even get into the optimal team. So I hope he gets ownership. We saw him really high on last game, but those are my 2 main takes. Jokic captain, Aaron Gordon fade, and maybe a little bit careful on the Bam.
Yeah, really good points there. And with Aaron Gordon too, I mean, most of you are probably with me, like kind of tilting in the first quarter because I didn't have him as a fade, but I was definitely under on him. And we talked about it in game 1. He's going to be out there for defensive purposes. And, we were right. He's done an awesome job, did an awesome job on KD. Then he did an awesome job on LeBron. And, now he's going to be primarily on Jimmy Butler. So, I mean, being out there for defense, not someone I really have a ton of interest in, but, obviously we're going to project him. So just a reminder, because if you missed game 1 when we broke this down, what am I doing here? I have this using my projections. I run what I call a base build. I'm just basically, I bring correlation down to 0. I bring sim diversity down to 1. You can also run a cash build, very similar, but I do this because it's faster and I want to run 150 lineups. I want to run a pool size of 1,500. Now, why do I do that? For a lot of reasons. I use a lot of this for research too. I want to see in my 1,500 builds. Let me see if I can move this real quick. For some reason, I can't. I want to see in the pool how much Jokic I'm getting, how much MPJ I'm getting, and we'll just go off of the 150 right here since I can't move this for some reason. You can see here I'm getting. So when we ran this on game 1, I think I had somewhere around 50% Jokic, and now we get the price adjustment. My projection on him is down slightly, like down 1.5 points, maybe 2 points. And now, if you remember from game 1, I had him at like 71 something. I have 69 #nice friendly projection on him. But the reason why I came down a few points, I don't know if in this series we need that aggressive Jokic. Like, I don't know if we're going to get that 20-plus field goal attempt Nikola Jokic. I see a lot more distributing, getting his guys involved, and I definitely see that for game 2. And that's why I really like MPJ. I think MPJ is most likely going to be the captain that I want to get to. Here we go. Now I can move it. So you can see in my pool of 1,500, I'm getting 24% Jokic, 19% MPJ. And then you can see, I think Gabe Vincent's interesting. I think these Miami guys are a little bit more interesting for game 2. And the reason is one, their prices have come down. Pricing matters in DFS. The other reason is they've had 3 days off. I think that's going to be really key for the Miami side of this game. Glock, let me kick it over to you. Talk to me a little bit about game 2 and what you're seeing. And then also, how do you feel about off these base projections? How do you feel about the captain pool in 150 here and some of the allocations that we're getting?
Yeah, so, just looking at when we're talking about game 2, I think personally, I'm still going to allocate some of my lineups to blowout. Like we've mentioned multiple times before, Denver didn't even shoot good from 3. I think I jinxed Michael Porter on the show because I said it felt like the guy did not miss from 3 ever, and then kind of had his worst 3-point shooting night of the playoffs, 2 for 11. Played honestly incredible. So I think I'm going to dedicate still portions of my lineups to the Denver blowout. Obviously in those scripts, Jokic captain, like Rubio mentioned, Jamal Murray, even though he's expensive, I think if those 2 are going off, and MPJ if I can fit them, those 3 are the main Denver guys for me personally. And then I'm going to fill out my build with a Haywood Highsmith and Duncan Robinson, similar to how I did last game. I think if I can find a build like that works, it's going to be great. So I think I'm personally going to go back to the blowout script. But like you said, pricing does matter. And when you do scroll through some of these vanilla optos, and even though I'm seeing yours as well, you're seeing a lot of 4 Miami, 3 Miami. And it's mainly due to a pricing thing, right? Because you have guys like Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, maybe even Bam Adebayo obviously is going to play a lot of minutes. Those guys are just going to play heavy minutes and are priced reasonably, right? You have guys like Nikola Jokic, obviously monster tag, 14.8, Jimmy Butler, 12.8. These guys are super, super expensive. So it's hard to just fit them. I always say it a lot, me and Rubio exchange a lot of DMs with the math is mathin', right? So that's why it's always important, like we say, to run these lineups in the optimizer, because even though you think you can hand build the best of the best lineup, you could be sacrificing 10, 15, 20 points of projection just if you hand build. And even though you think the build looks good, there's a lot of ways the math / an optimizer can help you. So just looking at your exposures here, I agree with it. I obviously want Jokic to be my top exposed captain for sure. MPJ, if you just look at the dude's game logs, he's crashing the boards now. He's had at least 10 rebounds in 4 of his last 5 games. I think that just continues here. He has an upside for an even higher ceiling because he shot bad from 3. And if he shoots 11 threes again, I'll take my chances anytime with MPJ. And then, the golden question is what to do with Bam Adebayo, right? I've been in the Discord, calling him Nigerian Rudy Gobert just because I'm not a fan of him, right? He's just been so disappointing in every game of the season. And anytime he's chalk, it's just he'll take 5 to 10 shots. And I was extremely shocked last game seeing him take 25 attempts. If you tell me he takes 25 shot attempts again, I'm going to play him for sure. But there's a chance he takes 8, 9 shot attempts. And granted, these shots were wide open, those pop shots, floaters. I don't think they're going to go away. So it's really just on Bam. I think he's a really huge decision point because right now I see him popping a lot at captain. I see Jokic popping a lot. Those 2 are my most highest exposed captains right now. Obviously those are just vanilla projections, but he's a big decision point. And I think, as we talk through it, I'm going to try to decide what I'm going to do with Bam. He may be my favorite Miami piece, honestly, but not in a blowout script. Obviously I'm going to have a portion of my lineups segmented to blowout. Obviously in those lineups, Haywood Highsmith, I want to be higher on. Duncan Robinson, I want to be higher on. And then in a close game, Bam Adebayo, Gabe Vincent, just price-wise, those 2 would probably be my favorite, and then followed by Kyle Lowry.
So let's walk through the potential captains, because like one of the other takeaways from game one, like instantly I regretted like just locking Jokic at captain. Now again, hindsight always 2020. I get it obviously, but Jokic had such an incredibly efficient game, distributing, facilitating. I think Murray also did as well. Two guys that got significant price increases heading into game two, and then Highsmith as well. We were high on him in game one, obviously, but he got one of the most significant price increases to me. I'm not fading him, but if he beats me in the captain spot again, he beats me. Like, I don't know if I want to go to Highsmith at captain in game two, but let's walk through these. Let's start with Jokic. Rubio, I get what you're saying with Jokic captain, and he was very high on the captain spot in game one. I think he will be again in game two because it's obviously Jokic. But is it enough to justify playing him? Like, one thing, we get such tight rotations at this point of the NBA, obviously. And when you have all of these guys just getting 40-plus minutes, some of these mid-range or upper-tier guys, you're going to want to jam multiple of them in, which makes can make a Jokic captain build, very difficult. So, like, one thing I like to do is I use this feature in Saber. And we're still on the base projections here. I'm highlighting only the Nikola Jokic builds, and I'm just going to scroll through them just to get an idea of how they look. And one thing right out of the gate that I guess I'm seeing is we're seeing a lot of pump plays. We get Cody Zeller in there. Obviously, like, Gabe is going to profile really well. If I'm playing Jokic captain, I'd probably want MPJ. The guys that we're probably not going to get a lot of would be, I guess, like, probably not a lot of Jimmy Butler in these builds. And so, Rubio, let me kick it back over to you. Talk me through this Jokic captain build again. And do you have any concerns, like running a ton of Jokic captain, just knowing that you're going to have to make some pretty significant fades, and you're going to need one of these value pieces? Like, okay, so where it could work is if we got news that, like, Kevin Love was starting, I would rerun all of this stuff and I would bump him way up. And a value like him is going to make a Jokic captain much more intriguing, because you still got the Gabe Vincents and the MPJs that are definitely underpriced. Also, Highsmith. We would have some really unique.
Yeah, look at that lineup right there in the middle. That's a tasty one if Kevin Love starts. Even if he doesn't start, I think that's nice.
We'll take a 0. I like it.
Well, yeah, talking about that lineup clock. I like it a lot.
You like it a lot?
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Talk to me. Like, I want to work through some of these captains. I'm going to group a couple of them together, but I think we could all agree that if you're spending up at captain, it's Jokic by far over Jimmy Butler. So talk to me about the Jokic captain, Rubio, and what you're doing with that build, and then talk about the plays that you're forced to fade if you go that route.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to Jimmy Butler, who had 50, and Jamal, who had near 50, and they're not hitting any builds with Jokic projected at 70. And I think you look at last game as that microcosm, that one game sample that we have. Jokic was kind of in second gear. I mean, that first half, he had 32 DK. Wasn't really assertive on the offensive end. I think he shot, 2 times, basically? I don't even remember if it was just 2 times in the first half. Then in the fourth quarter, when the push came to shove a little bit, Miami kept trimming it down to like that 10, that 11 range. Guess who took over? It was Jokic, who really showed up in that fourth quarter with 12 points. He only had 1 rebound and still put up 17.75 DK fantasy points just in that quarter alone. And he also rested a little bit in that fourth quarter as well. Like, I think if you see Jamal have any inklings of struggling tonight and the Heat coming out desperate, I think Jokic just says, screw it, I'm the best player in the world. I'll go ahead and take these shots like I did in the fourth quarter. And I really think that we kind of see the way that the Heat played. Like, I think that we see a little bit more Highsmith on Jamal, making life difficult on him. And if Jamal is underwhelming, like, there's not a whole lot of outlets for the Nuggets to score the ball, right? I mean, it's MPJ, but those those MPJ points are likely coming from Jokic as well. Like, you get a lot of this, like, bread and butter, the little bit of Jokic just dominating the offensive end. I think he can get 75. As long as you would have to clear Jimmy and Jamal. I think you would have to clear Jimmy by about 25, 22 fantasy points, according to my projection, then, like, clear Jamal by like 28, which I think is entirely in the cards tonight. And you also get just an insanely high floor. This is one of the thing with Bam. a very high variance player, right? We saw in the Celtics series, he showed up in game 2, but then in games 3, 4, whatever, I think he had like 22 fantasy points, 30 fantasy points. He has paths to really just be disappointing. However, he's probably going to be the most popular captain tonight, I would assume. I think he's going to be very, very close with Jokic on the captain side because people saw what last game brought to the table, and you can get a lot of leverage in fading. And I'm with Glock, though. In my main team, I have Bam Adebayo right now. But across my MME, I think I'm back to 50 teams with the AP. I think there's a lot of leverage in getting a little bit different from the field, fading Bam, fading Jimmy, and then fading Jamal even, and you can leave like 1K, 1K of salary here, and really kind of differentiate your lineups. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be completely unique. You're not going to get the solo shipper, but I think that you can really fancy yourself for a good finish. And this isn't even including if Love happens to start, which I think is entirely in the cards too. I think Love might get minutes as well, and Love is really just someone who's popping on the page when I project him for just 7. And he's going to be the most difficult one. It's a double-edged sword. If he plays, I think he's got an amazing chance to be optimal. But we just saw last game, he was a DNP. He kind of busted out in quite a few of our lineups there too. So it's that double-edged sword that you got to be careful with if you're trying to play Jokic. You got to have that risk tolerance. You got to be willing to say, hey, if Love doesn't play and I have Jokic captain, oh well. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a 2K player. It's probably not going to be the difference between you not cashing and cashing. Like, I'm going for the shipper only. But I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say. I do like MPJ in the captain, but this is a guy who we kind of know what he is. His rebounding has been just amazing this playoffs. I think he's averaging over 10 boards the last 5 games as well. Like, I think if he gets a double-double tonight, that soft price tag as well. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see MPJ as the optimal captain, like you said, AP. So I get that route completely.
I just think like when we go game one, like when you go game to game and you look at these adjustments, they just matter so much, especially when you factor in Miami. They need to condense the rotation down, and Spo's going to focus in on whoever's hot. And Gabe has been like a guy throughout the entire playoffs that they just leaned on. I think there's a decent chance now. Jokic can am I going to fade Jokic at captain? So I just took him out because Glock, I'm going to send it over to you to talk about this range, but I'm not going to fade him. But I took him out. I took Highsmith out. I took Murray out. And then I also took Aaron Gordon out because I think we're all just kind of fading him at the captain spot. That's one guy that we can all agree on. I think there's a strong likelihood that the optimal captain comes from this range. And I honestly think it could be from the Miami side if they tighten up the rotation. Like, I think on the Denver side, MPJ, if he goes off, he'd be my favorite captain. But I think in tournaments, I have a ton of interest in Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry in this group. And then I think Bam might be just, for box score watchers, might be the most likely popular-ish captain. Just people go in there. The price is nice. But I think there's a lot of interesting value in Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, sneaking them into the captain spot. Glock, talk to me about this range for captain. And then is there anyone that we're not thinking about that isn't hitting kind of these builds that I'm looking at?
No, yeah, I think you hit it on the head. Like, this range, like if you just compare the builds that we were seeing with the Jokic captain versus what we're seeing now, like just this top one right here, like, or even the one you're scrolling into, like, you're going to get 6 really, really good plays that are essentially guaranteed minutes. Like, you can make a case, all these mid-range teams, like, you're going to have all guys generally that are going to play over 20 minutes. On that Jokic captain build, you're taking, there's a lot of Cody Zeller that's popping. There's a lot of Christian Braun that's popping again. Brown, for the Brown truthers. And then, obviously Kevin Love pops in those Jokic captain builds as well. So like Rubio said, like, I think this mid-range build, it's going to be more ownership oriented where people just feel safe in this. Like, okay, if I can get 6 really good plays that have high minute ceilings, I'm in. Like, in like this build right here with Bam captain, Max Strus, Haywood Highsmith are your cheapest dudes. All these guys can play above 25 minutes. So I think people are going to gravitate towards these type of builds more. And that's what really like makes me want to buy more into the Jokic captain, like Rubio saying, where you're playing more into the uncertainty where, okay, this guy might DMP like he did game 1. Kevin Love, he may DMP. But if he does play, 1, he's going to be low owned. And 2, like you're differentiating from the rest of the field because you don't have that same build construction as everyone else. And one thing we said in that first stream was like, okay, a lot of teams in this playoffs had success against the Nuggets when they just forced Jokic to be that guy. Like, make him be the aggressor, make him be the guy that gets 40 raw, 20 rebounds, but do not let him get the others involved. That was the exact opposite of what we saw in game one. And then on national television, that's all we heard about on the radio as well. Like, that's all we heard about all week or all weekend, I guess. Like, oh my God, Jokic didn't even try to score. Like, he didn't even try to score and they won so easily. Like, he made his impact on the game, just by passing and assisting. And like, I think that's the exact opposite of what you want when you play Denver. Like, you want Jokic to be the guy. You don't want Aaron Gordon to get you 20 and 10. You don't want MPJ to get you 20 and 10. Sure, Jamal can go off a little bit, but I feel like if I was playing Denver and I was coaching against them, I want Jokic to be that guy. And, Spo is definitely a sharp guy. I just didn't really see it in game one. And I'm hoping game two, there's a chance that he does flip to that script. And in that script, Jokic captains are even better. So that's kind of where I'm headed.
Yeah, and again, Chad, like so we were just talking about the Aaron Gordon fade, like for this part of it, because he was hitting a decent amount. And I'll tell you, while I'm under on him, I'm not full fading him in my 50 builds that I'm running. I think that would be a bad
I'll tell
move.
you, if Caleb Martin starts again and they start small, I will be at least even with the field on Aaron Gordon, because I think we could see the same thing like happen again where they just abuse the mismatch, like.
Yeah,
but if there's an adjustment, then I'll probably be lower on Aaron Gordon like I always am. But I think if they start the same, just seeing what I saw last game, obviously he did disappear in the second half. But seeing what he did in the first quarter, like there is upside to that matchup. So
if you just run like this build is, I mean, Kyle Lowry is going to be like unowned in the captain spot. I mean, you would have to think like, so that's where I think it's a little intriguing there. And I thought he played okay in the fourth quarter. It's not like he's been a staple in the playoffs or anything. I mean, what's your guys' take on Kyle Lowry? Or is he going to be in your captain pool, or am I just burning money with this play?
I've always liked Kyle Lowry this entire playoffs. It's been kind of tilting because like I feel like every Showdown slater, I played him a lot in this playoffs basically, just because I believe Spo wants to lean into his vets. Obviously, Kyle Lowry has the most experience. But every single time, it just seems like Gabe Vincent takes over. And, it's if Spo has a choice, it's really Gabe Vincent closing over Lowry. But one thing I will say, last game, you saw a lot of overlap between the two where they did play Lowry and Vincent together. That was actually one group that I did a lot in my opto, and it costed me at least once in the playoffs. I would definitely not group them out today. I definitely think Gabe and Kyle Lowry are both in play for sure. And I like them. I like them just like you, AP, I would say.
Yeah, I remember that game, Glock, where Lowry and Vincent hit the optimal, and I was right behind it too because I think Lowry outscored Martin that game. I think it was game 4 or game 3 of that playoff series against the Heat or against the Celtics. I think I don't want to completely say like, oh man, Vincent's foolproof, but the minutes have been really, really high in that 7-game series against the Celtics, really high in game 1 here. But as someone who and Bobby, Bobby's amazing at NBA. He rode that Gabe Vincent hot hand in the first series against the Bucks. It paid off really well. And then in the second series, I followed suit with him. And there was times where Vincent just got into foul trouble and never got a rhythm against the Knicks. And I know it's a completely different series. Things have changed. It's been about almost a dozen games since game 1, game 2 of that series and stuff. But there's been paths where Gabe Vincent loses minutes. He didn't hit his shots in the first quarter, or either gets 3 fouls real quick. So I don't mind. Like, I don't mind including Lowry. Like, Lowry's kind of a big game hunter almost, right? Like, seems like he's always been decent in his career in these games, and that price tag's a little bit low. And like you said, I'm not grouping Vincent and Lowry away anymore. Like Locke said, I did that before. I stopped doing it. I think in game 5 of that Celtics series because they've seen the court a lot together. I know Vincent ended up missing 1 game last series. I think it was game 5 that ended up stopped grouping naturally after Vincent missed. But you're seeing a lot of shared minutes. I think that's the biggest thing to note. But Lowry's got to have interest. I mean, he showed up last game with 11, 5, and 5. And if Vincent starts off slow too, like I don't mind having Lowry in there. These guards get the favorable matchup on the Denver side of things. One of them's got to succeed, it feels, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, one thing I mentioned previously, the Gabe Vincent and the Lowry overlap. If they are Gabe Vincent has kind of been that on-ball defender that Miami has gone to in that starting lineup. Like he's guarded Murray. I think if they go to more Highsmith, obviously he then becomes their on-ball guy. In turn, could mean, if they don't want to overlap, Lowry and Vincent anymore, that could put Gabe at risk because he's technically he won't be their on-ball guy anymore. Haywood Highsmith is going to be on Jamal Murray. So that even boosts up Kyle Lowry in that case, because then he would be the point guard that Spo trusts. So just something to think about for sure. I'm definitely not grouping them away like Highsmith and Gabe Vincent. I think they could be totally fine together, but it's just something to think about when you think about the roles in this series, because, Gabe Vincent is definitely the guy that starts out on Jamal Murray. And then, obviously when Highsmith comes in, you saw last game that he's the guy that's picking up Murray full court. So,
yeah, very good. Let's run a script like we did last time. So last time we ran a blowout script in favor of Denver. We're pretty close. We're pretty close to spot on with that script. And that was kind of a function of we were just really high on having four twos on the Denver side. Could be different with the pricing adjustments headed into game 2. What kind of – so, again, I think this could be a little bit more of a competitive game. I know we're all on Denver. I still think Miami is going to steal a game, most likely at home. But this team, it can come from anywhere. One thing that stood out, just going back to game 1, this was like almost a playoff low, 18% usage rate for Jimmy Butler. The last time he had a usage rate that low was against the Knicks, where the game environment was much slower and more defensive.
Maybe it was coming off the injury too. That the low usage.
Maybe coming off. I mean, we got to think that. First off, let's all agree. What script do we want to run? A more competitive game type of script? All right, we got the yes from Rubio. Glock, yeah.
I'll do whatever you guys want to do. Yeah,
maybe like Denver wins, but we're getting tight rotations from both sides. So all right, let's walk through this. And I love to do this. And I think if you have a good understanding of NBA and you have a good understanding of how you think the game is going to go, I love doing this just as far as like seeing what at least the builds look like. So do you think things run through Bam again? What's your guys' ultimately with the script that we want to run? Or do you think if they switch to Jimmy, do you think that has a direct impact on Bam? Ruby, I'll start with you.
I think there's a lot to be had here. I think you can group away Bam from Jimmy. I know that's a little bit more aggressive, but Jokic is a lock, and I don't think they're going to fall in too many lineups together. But I think Jimmy said he's going to be more aggressive tonight. I think that hurts Bam, but Bam's still hitting plenty of builds at 38, 39 projections. So I do think Bam's upside is not going to be what we saw in game 1, but I think he's still viable. But I have Jimmy, I was really low on Jimmy last game. I had to project for 41, and he went under that. I got him over 50 now. He's a man of his word. When he says he's aggressive, he's going to be aggressive. I got him over 50 tonight, but I don't like grouping him with Bam.
So I think what we do, and this could be real interesting because everyone's going to go to Bam. Like everyone. So let's run that script where Jimmy is the aggressor and Bam more focused on maybe making life hard on Jokic. Is that a fair assumption? And
that's definitely the contrarian route, because right now you're going to get way more Bam than Jimmy if you don't make any modifications to like vanilla projections. So bumping up Butler and bumping down Bam is definitely going to be a lesser owned route and more contrarian for sure.
What do we do with Kyle Lowry and Gabe Vincent off of like my base projections? Glock, I'll go to you with this one.
I've always kept them similar in projection.
Okay.
Like you see,
we like them though, right?
Yeah, I like them both.
Yeah.
I like them both because it's to me it's like a coin flip, and like you just look at their prices, it's just a $200 difference. Obviously, one comes off the bench, but I've been really projecting them similarly. Maybe giving Gabe like one extra point, but like bumping up Kyle Lowry a little bit, and then keeping Gabe at like 27. Is definitely something that I would do for sure.
What about the wings here? Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, Ruby. I'm going to go back to you. Highsmith. We've all talked about Highsmith. Let's just say Spo goes to that adjustment early, and let's just say, all right. So he played what? 20. How many minutes did he play in game 1? He played
25, I think, or 23.
25. 23 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's just say he gets 27 minutes. And, if he's getting 27 minutes, Yeah, I mean,
That's right.
Yeah, let's get a little aggressive on him since we're running a script here, and
That's a juicy projection. Yeah.
It's a really. And again, like I just want to see if we get aggressive on him. What does it do to the captain? Do we get these builds where we're forcing in multiple studs? That's kind of what I want to see there. I've been so low on Max Strus. Like I don't want to bump him up, but Rubio, what should we do with Caleb Martin? And Caleb Martin might he might not matter because he's 7,200. I mean, that tag is just egregious in my opinion.
His usage rate was a little bit there, but if Jimmy's going to be a little bit more aggressive, that caused me to bump down these guys a little bit. But I still have Martin at like 25 even because like he's still a good, like high active, high energy player. But like you said, it doesn't really matter when he's 7.2. I still got Michael Porter Jr. well ahead.
Yeah, he won't hit.
I still got like KCP and Bruce Brown and even Aaron Gordon, who I have at like 21, is still within that ballpark as well. The one thing though, like, this is where I'm probably a little bit different than you guys. I know Tyler Hero is ruled out. I think he ends up playing. They already said that they can upgrade that before game time and stuff.
Really?
He went through practice yesterday pretty intensely. Like, it was pretty like, I'm playing, right? Like Tyler Hero has that vibe around him. And I think he enters the rotation, and that causes me just to nuke these wings like Strus and Robinson. I think let's the rotation in that case. And I know that it's very apparent on news, and that's why like it's the best to use the code SUMMER33 and sign up for Run Pure Sports so you get all the reactions in our Discord, all the updates as well. But if Hero is active, it impacts these wings a ton, and it's not something that we can understate. We can even project him to be out right now, and if things hit the fan, we can update it in our Discord for sure. But that's huge news to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that would potentially impact Kyle Lowry. I mean, that would impact a lot.
It would. It would change the slate.
You're looking for him to start, though, right? I mean, if he's not starting,
Hero to be active. I don't think he would start.
Hero to be active. Okay.
Yeah, I think he'll come off the bench with no matter what. I think he gets upgraded before game time. Like I said, I could be wrong. Could be a moot point.
We'll
move on now. Just for the show's sake, just rule out Hero and then deal with it for the paying members who used code SUMMER33 for your first time payment.
So who wants to take the Kevin Love one? Glock? What do you think about?
It's tricky because we don't know what the starting lineup is going to be. Like, obviously, if he starts, I think you can project him at 10. Maybe even higher. But I think if I'm projecting him off the bench to just have a role and they kind of continue to start Caleb Martin, I would project him at 7 or 8 and see if he pops. I think he is going to pop, but 7 or 8 seems reasonable off the bench if he has a role.
Throw that in. We'll leave these other guys alone. Now, I think for me, I think the Nuggets side is easier because why should Malone change anything? We're going to see another tight 6-man rotation. Like we talked about this last time. Like if I'm going to play some scrubs, I would rather play scrubs on the Miami side than like Jeff Green or Christian Braun. Brown or Braun?
It's
same
Brown,
difference. Doesn't matter. Brown. All right.
100% Brown.
It's Brown, but it's Troll. Yeah.
So like KCP bounce back. KCP, like he's out there for defense. Like for me, the Denver side, it's all, these three. And then, I get it, chat, like Aaron Gordon, maybe for this purpose, let's keep a fair projection on him. But again, like we rarely see, like I don't think Miami's just going to let Aaron Gordon nuke. Like Spo made that adjustment pretty quick. And like, because he did all of his damage in the first quarter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, did he do anything in the second half?
I think he scored like one fantasy in the second half or something. It was something ridiculous.
Gotcha.
Talk about Gordon, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'll pull it up right now.
So just thinking about what Miami wants to do. So if you're Miami, who do you put Jimmy on? I mean, so like Highsmith for Murray, and let's just say that makes life hard on Murray. And again, we're running a script. Murray can, get buckets on anyone.
Jimmy's been kind of guarding Gordon to where he can like stalk the baseline and like kind of / help on Jokic. Is what I've been seeing. So
MPJ is going to have MPJ just from a size perspective. And this is why I love him so much tonight over anyone. He's going to get his looks. And if he just shoots a little bit better, I mean, he's getting us a 40 piece. So, I mean, can we get a little aggressive on him? Like maybe like
I think Jokic and MPJ are the aggressive guys. I think that I prefer personally.
We keep Jokic where he's at. The hashtag 6069, pretty nice.
Yeah.
Rubio, should we adjust any of these guys, or are we fine with keeping the Denver side more closer to the baseline?
Let's lower Gordon just a bit. I think
I would lower
a little bit too much, and I think he's heavy chalk. I think what we saw him, he was one of the highest owned guys last game, and then his price went down. I think that ownership is high, so he's the guy I'm not afraid to fade at all.
So our two with this script are two big, because I always like to think of this from like a macro standpoint too. So what are like we doing to be different in relation to the field? Under on Aaron Gordon and under on Bam. I think those two things alone are going to make us somewhat unique. Right?
Higher on Jimmy too.
Higher on Jimmy as well. Yeah. Yep. And let's leave all this the same. Let's run this again. We talked about this last week with the sliders. Now this is again, it's if you're uncertain if you have less and this is again my opinion. But for NBA, if you're less certain about the potential scripts that could pan out, kind of like what we did today, I would bump the sim diversity slider up. If you're more confident in your projections, or if you've changed them like we have aggressively, and if you want the projected builds to more match your projections, bring the sim diversity slider down. That's something that I do quite often. So we're going to do this. We're going to run 150 again. I'm going to run 500 instead. And then I always sort it by projected highest. Glock, do you have any, when it comes to using SaberSim and these, like what are you typically doing?
Yeah, I always project by projected score, highest projected score, because obviously those top, if I trust in my projections, those top 150 is what I want. But I do think when you do things like, adjust the sim diversity and whatnot, seeing what that top Saber score projected lineup does, like try to make sense of it, right? So like if your projections are telling you one thing where, Jokic captain is popping here, but then you run it with, sim diversity to the highest level, you can sometimes try to spot a pattern like, okay, why is the sim diversity telling me to, fade more of this player and be heavier on this player? And then that could change your opinion on like, okay, like the sims are telling me, maybe I should be higher on, Kyle Lowry when, my projections are lower on him. Like comparing and like doing multiple runs is definitely one of the best things about Saber, and having those tabs where like, okay, you had a GPP run where you increase your sim diversity to 10. And then your next run was where you had just your cash lines where there's no sliders. Like, I think that's one of the most helpful things about SaberSim, because you can easily flip through those builds and go back in time and look at them and review them. Unlike other optimizers where it's like, okay, you run it once and then you have to hit another 150. It erases your last run, and then you kind of have to like keep track of it, like, with between each run, like in your own way, like with Excel or something. So just having the ability to, have different runs and keeping track of them and have history of them is definitely one of the best things about Saber. And yeah, I mean, I'm basically like you, just projected score basically.
Yeah, I mean, Bam's going to be a tough fade. And again, you can build out these scripts to kind of, from a research standpoint, to figure out, okay, is this a good fade? Is this a good play? Like, we bumped Bam down quite a bit, and he's still hitting the captain in our 6th highest build. So, like, that does say something, but it also says something about his ownership. Rubio, let me kick it. Yeah. Let me kick it back to you. How do you like our setup with our obviously our adjusted game script that we mapped out? That adjustment was increasing Jimmy up, leaving Jokic alone, being a little bit under on Bam projection wise, but we're still getting him, obviously getting a little bit of him in the captain spot. What do you? Well, actually, you should like this because we're getting more Jokic. We had 24% Jokic exposure in the captain previously. Now we're getting 31. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and like when you were doing that too, I kind of went in and kind of did the same thing as well, just to kind of see what I get, because like, I like seeing these numbers and stuff, and you really see it. Like these Jokic captain teams, and if it has like Jimmy too, like I think you're automatically different from the field. I don't think anyone's really gonna have the balls to pair Jokic captain with Jimmy and then risk
fading Bam too as well.
Scrubs like Brown and or Christian Brown. You don't want to get confused with Bruce Brown, even though it's spelled differently. But yeah, Christian Brown and Jeff Green, Kevin Love, Cody Zeller. You got 4 gross players right there, with Jeff Green really the only one guaranteed minutes. I know Christian Brown has played 8 minutes last game and stuff, but his rotation minutes can always be lost in the shuffle. But it's a path that I'm looking at, and I like being underweight on Bam. But like you said, there's some teams where if Love starts, Bam is fitting like an absolute glove for me, and it's hard to get away from the 25 shots the last game. And that's why it's a little bit fun to MME. I can have a single entry team, be like, hey, I'll bite the bullet on Bam here, but if Bam sucks, I got 30 teams in the 25 ready to kind of eat. And that's kind of the approach I'm taking right now, is I might be under on Bam in the full scale of my 50 lineups. But as far as my single entry, I might bite the bullet and be like, hey, Bam does well. At least I'm not completely dead. And he's going to grade out as a high ownership play. And this is where Glock, your article, your complete breakdown of the entire year. Obviously, it differs from Showdown, from classic slates, but it's okay to be chalky in single entries sometime. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's a way to get different a little bit elsewhere. And, Love could be that guy tonight. Leaving a little bit of salary could be that thing tonight. So that's probably where I'll get different on in single entry, is maybe playing just one unique guy, or leaving a little bit of salary, and then being really aggressive in my MME and fading Bam like you kind of have here. Even though you bumped him down, I might bump him down lower for my MME and see if he hits then, and see if I bump up Jimmy, because we just talked about it. I mean, there's direct correlation between the two. I'll post it in our Discord too, but I'll bring up their past 10 games together, and I'll see if they both hit 50 even together. And I think the answer is
chance.
So that'll be a lot of fun.
So we'll close with our final our score predictions. But this build has hit a couple times for me, and so it's the 5-1 with Jokic captain. Now, okay, again, it's way out there, but again, we're trying to solo ship. It's interesting because 4 of the pieces here were the most effective pieces down the stretch in the fourth quarter for Miami. That was Gabe Vincent, Jimmy Butler, Highsmith, and Kyle Lowry. And then obviously Jokic. And if you think of what we talked about, we're building out a game script. If you how can Miami, and we're trying to be contrarian, we all like Denver in the series. Again, but how can Miami keep this close and more competitive? It's Denver has to have a poor shooting night, again. And if that happens, we talk about it all the time. Jokic is going to get his no matter what. Jokic shot the ball 12 times last game. He still got a triple-double, put up almost a 70-piece. I think 68, something like that. So Jokic is going to get his. If they clamp down on everyone else and everyone else is struggling, you get those mid-tier pieces that pop up. And that's interesting. It just comes to this build.
Not to mention, AP, you don't have Bam. Are you talking about the bottom one, right?
Yeah, the Jokic captain.
Yeah, so one,
it's
you
5-1.
don't have Bam, and you leverage him with Cody Zeller. Yep. Bam picks up 2 fouls. Boom, Cody Zeller's coming in. Obviously, there was a lot of bad negative talk about why are they playing Cody Zeller? Why are they just not playing Kevin Love? Still, there's leverage to be had there. Maybe that reduces Zeller's ownership overall as a whole. 1.2K, he was almost optimal. He was on pace to be optimal if Haywood Highsmith was not obviously going off. So in this case right here, it could be Zeller as your leverage for sure. Over Bam.
And just thinking about what you need to happen or to go down to happen to make this build work is you need the Jimmy to be aggressive. You got to have the offense rotate back through him. And then it comes down to, can Jimmy outscore MPJ and, obviously way more price than MPJ, but you need MPJ to have a bad game. You need Jamal Murray to underwhelm. Can he outscore that group? And then it's also the Kyle Lowrys and the Gabe Vincents keep up with MPJ? Because if that happens, that's where a crazy build like this one, can pan out. So I think it's pretty interesting. Again, if you haven't yet, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Helps us out a lot here over at Run Pure Sports. We're running a summer promo right now, Summer 33. Big T, JSU, they already recorded their show, I believe members only. That is live on the site right now. So members, you can go over and view that. If you're not a member, come check us out for a week. Use the code for a week. Get 33% off. That's a massive discount. Go watch their show, their breakdown. I haven't seen it yet. When we get off the show, I'm gonna pull it up and dive in with their thoughts. And the score prediction. So I've seen you post them in the chat here. Post them in the comments. The comment section below. Your final score prediction for Game 2. Whoever is closest is going to get a shout out for Game 3, our Game 3 show, which I believe is Wednesday, and RPS swag bag gear. So we're going to hook you up with hats, shirts, golf polos, etc. It'll be a great thing. So make sure your final score prediction down below. Rubio, Game 2, who wins? What's the score?
Like you said, AP, do it in the comments, not the chat. So right after the show ends, make sure you put that score into the comments. And I think Denver wins this one. I think they put up a big whopping score of 116, and Miami comes out firing. They cover the spread, 116-108, Denver.
I like it. Glock, who do you got winning, and what is the score?
Like I said, I think this build right here is really tasty. I'm going to take a screenshot myself. In a close game script, it makes perfect sense to me. I love the build for sure. But I'm going to go Denver blowout. I think they shoot well. I'm going to just stick with the same comments I had for Game 1, where I just think Miami's a little too outmatched. I think they're going to take one probably in Miami, but not tonight. I think Denver plays well, shoots well. I'm going to go with a blowout, 115-90.
115-90. I like it. I am going to say, I think so. We swept the board. Nuggets win. I'm with you guys on that. I think we see a little bit more defense. I think Miami scores. I think they get to 100. So I think it's going to be 111-101 is what I got with the Nuggets winning again. Hopefully Miami gets one at home, because I got 5-1 or 4-1 games going to 5. Nuggets winning. So we will see. We will be back on Wednesday, breaking it all down. Hit the like, hit the subscribe before you get out of here. For Rubio, for Glock, I'm AP. Let's run beer.